Please silence your cell phones. We'll begin our meeting very soon. At this point, I would like to ask Representative Almond to open us in prayer.
Yes, thank you. Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We thank you for these people gathered. There's so many issues on our minds, and collectively we offer them up to you, Father. Ask that you give us wisdom and guidance to make the best decisions we know how to make. We ask that for your provision today, and give us safety, give us health, Father, and bless all that we do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Here.
Representative Keel. Here. Representative Drummond. Representative Almond.
Here.
Representative Baker. Representative Chestnut. Representative Collins. Here. Representative Colvin. Here. Representative Daniels. Representative Ellis. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Here. Representative Lovern. Here. Representative Stubbs. Here. Representative Wood. 9 members answering the roll. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a few members who'd like to recognize some guests today. Who told me that?
Me.
Representative Collins.
Thank you very much. We have a special guest with us. I have done a lot with SREB, Southern Regional Educational Board, over the years, and appreciate all their help. And we have with us today Lee Posey, who's the Vice President of State Strategies and Policy. If she'll stand up, I'd like to recognize her.
Welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do. Representative Wood.
Yes, I have Casey Chambly here. He's the superintendent for Chambers County Schools. Casey, if you'll stand up. He was somewhere. There he is. Thank you for being here.
Welcome, sir. Thank you. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have a special guest. It's Dr. Melvin Brown from Montgomery Public Schools.
Dr. Brown, welcome. Anyone else? Okay, we, at the request of one of our presenters who has another committee meeting, we're going to adjust the agenda slightly. Clerk, please call first bill.
Senate Bill 73 by Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Danny Crawford. I'm not Jack Williams, but he was tied up. I'm a lot better looking than Jack. So, but this bill, we had it last week, dealing with the tax exemptions on fencing materials, common fencing materials. Only difference in this bill is that those amendments that we offered are engrossed in this one. So, that deals with the 25,000 limit. Sunset on 5 years, and then the affidavit that must be signed by the purchaser at the vendor's location.
You say the amendments that we offered last week are engrossed in this bill?
Yes.
So these bills are similar?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Representative Lovern? Favorable report. Motion by Representative Lovern. Second, Representative Colvin. Any questions by members? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. I appreciate it.
I don't see Representative Gavan. Are you in the room? Oh, okay. Okay. Clerk, let's go to SB 209, please.
By Senator Jones.
Is Senator Jones in the room? Is there a House companion to this bill? Do we know? Okay, I guess we'll need to carry this over then. Okay. Clerk, please call the next bill.
House Bill 310 by Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 310 is the Rural Health Hospital Investment Program. We heard this a few weeks ago, And what I did was listen to what all of you said and had some other people come and help us. So I want to walk you through all the changes that you talked about. First of all, I had lots of people come to me that wanted to participate in it. So besides sale and income tax, which hit the ETF, we have added to it utility tax, banks, excise, insurance. We had a lot of people from counties and municipalities in those rural areas say, this is a workforce bill. This is important. We can't recruit workforce to these rural areas unless we can say we can provide these healthcare options. And so we also halved the amount from 40 down to 20. It goes from 20, 25 to 30. It caps there and it sunsets. So I've truly tried to listen. I believe the excise, the utility, let me see if I say them all straight because I don't want to leave any out. It is income still, but excise, utility, or insurance premium, liability tax, those will all go, those revenues go to the general fund. And so what I'm asking is for us to pass this bill and let's get this bill through this year so that we could see, is it going to hit the ATF or is it going to hit the general fund? And I think we've put a really good cap to see what happens. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I ask for a favorable report.
Tell me again, if you don't mind, the changes in the caps or the amount. You said it was
Pretty much half. They start at 20, and then they go to 25, and then they go to 30, and they cap there.
Previously, it started at 40.
40, and we went up to 80.
From 40 went to what? From
I think it was 65, and then it stopped at 80.
into 80. Okay. And your last comment, you said we're not sure what the impact of the ETF would be. What?
My guess is it's going to hit the general fund revenue sources a lot more simply because in those rural areas, the biggest providers are often your utility companies and your banks and your ones that have revenues that go there, your insurance. And so I do think it's a big possibility this may have a minor hit. And we've capped it regardless, so it's at 20.
Okay. So last week we talked about the bill you had. We talked about that we would not be moving it necessarily.
One of us talked about that. One of us did not.
Okay. We have a difference of opinion here.
We do.
I have other thoughts, but I'll reserve those to hear what the other committee members have to say. So anybody want to
Mr.
speak
Chairman.
about the bill? Representative Rahman?
Thank you, Representative Collins. When I read this bill last night, I thought it was an innovative way.
Thank you.
Now, I understand that other states like Georgia, can you sort of explain the success that they've had, not what they're doing, but how successful has it been there?
It's been extremely successful in Georgia. There was a gentleman that was here during the public hearing that spoke to us, Joel Truss, and if you remember, he talked about it had saved several of their rural hospitals. We have 29 that would really, really like to participate in it. One of the people that called me was actually Jason Isbell from the bankers, and they asked to be a part of it. I mean, I haven't had people asking to be a part necessarily. So I do think it's got a lot of good possibilities, and I'd love to see us give it a try and see exactly where those tax credit revenues are assigned. Will they be more in the general fund than the ETF?
Any other comments or questions? Representative Wood?
I do think that hospitals are necessary. I think that when you're trying from a rural community to recruit industry, you already have so many things to compete with. A lot of rural areas don't have occupational taxes that larger cities have that they can recruit with. And you really have to have other things that you can offer. And having a hospital there that can service individuals and service that company is extremely important. So thank you for the bill.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? You have a comment or?
I just was going to make a comment, but
No, make a comment. Make a comment. I'm going to make a comments too, but I want everybody else to make their comments. So make your comment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just was going to comment, I've had a tax credit bill also, and it's just been interesting in trying to educate myself on tax credits. We see the bottom line in the bill, but what we don't see is if we don't do this tax credit, what's the other cost? What's the fallout to our communities and our state? And that's something that's very difficult to capture. But if we lose our rural hospitals, for example, there's going to be fallout from that. So there are all sorts of costs to that, but there's also financial costs to that we just can't see and capture. So, I think as we try to figure these tax credits out, it's important to try to understand, what the fallout would be if we don't do the tax credits. So that's my comment, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate those comments. I do want to say, while there are 29 rural hospitals, there are 2 that would really like for this to pass. I think that we have really tried to compromise, and I don't think we'll ever know if it's going to hit ETF or general fund until we see where those revenues for the tax credits come from. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? So, first of all, I want to thank you for working on the bill and sharing. I think the bill we have before us today is a lot more. I think it's a better bill than what we had to look at first. That's my opinion. I also think that the issue you're trying to address is very critical, and I think it's a complex issue that involves, I think, people beyond my understanding of that of the industry and what's going on in rural areas. I don't live in a rural area. I don't have rural hospitals, and I don't really understand. That's not my wheelhouse. So I think having the input of people in that world, the health committee, others. But what I think is really important, I have a little bit of problem trying to move forward with something when we really don't know the impact. And I think at this point too, out of respect for my other committee, the General Fund Committee, most of these taxes, I think, are coming out of general fund, not the Education Trust Fund. And I think out of respect for them, they need to understand that. I would hate for them to do the same thing to me. So I would suggest that there's a gnat up here flying around. But anyway, I think what I would do is suggest that I don't know how you do this, but refer this to general fund and let you make the discussion, have that discussion with them. Because I think that most of the impact is going to be to them and not us. We also, to kind of emphasize the point I made earlier, we have a lot of credits on our table. We passed a budget yesterday, but we're holding back on a lot of these credits, and we have to make some decision because they're going to actually, hit the ETF. And we know the school choice has already been a bill that's going to hit ETF in the future. Grocery tax reduction is going to hit it. We just need to analyze this. So would you object to us having this discussion with the general fund?
Is there a possibility we could move it out and ask it to be reassigned to there so it's out of one committee, since it also affects the ETF?
I will have to vote no because I don't have enough information. But if I'll let the committee do that if they'd like, but I'm going to be voting no on that.
It's just a question.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments from members?
I'll work with the speaker to see if we can get it assigned.
But I do appreciate the work you've done. I think you've got the right motivation, and you're trying to address some important issues.
We've done a lot of tax credits. None have been for our hospitals in our rural areas.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, please call the next bill.
House Bill 415 by Representative Gavan.
Representative Gavan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and please excuse my tardiness. Before I begin, this is a very, I really don't like to use the term simple bill because I've seen where even a one-page bill sometimes gets to be very convoluted. But I want to first of all thank you with regards to this journey that I have been on for the past year with regards to Birmingham Southern and the efforts to save the institution from closing. You and I worked very closely last year. Unfortunately, we were not as successful. And last year I asked this committee to support a piece of legislation which would have created, or which ultimately did create, the institutions of higher learning, higher education revolving loan program. There was not an appetite by the treasurer, as well as many of the members here in the House of Representatives, to move forward with this piece of legislation or the type of funding that was established. But again, I want to thank all of the members who voted for this program last year. However, we are here today, and before you members is House Bill 415. If enacted and approved by this House, it would repeal Section 16-65A-1 through 16-65A through 7 related to the Distressed Institutions of Higher Learning Education Revolving Loan Program, and it would provide that any funds in the Distressed Institutions of Higher Education Loan Program Fund would be transferred back to the ETF within 30 days of the effective date of this bill. Provides that any of those funds transferred to the ETF by this bill are available for supplemental appropriation for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024. And I know yesterday we made some strides contingent upon this legislation passing. So at this time, Mr. Speaker, I would ask this committee to give just due consideration for the approval of this piece of legislation.
Thank you for the bill and for your explanation. Just to further clarify, the current program, the distress loan program, expires when the current treasurer leaves office.
Yes, it does.
And
we did put a sunset in that bill, and of course we're not at that point, so therefore there has to be a repeal by this legislative body.
And yesterday in the supplemental appropriation the House adopted, we had a contingent appropriation of this money that was set aside for this loan based upon the passage of this bill, the repeal of this. If this bill is repealed, $15 million would go into the Lieutenant Governor's Capital Grant Fund. The balance of that, about $15 million, would be available for community service grants. So those were contingent upon the repeal of this legislation. Any questions or comments by members? Representative Lawrence?
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I would like to move to give HB 415 a favorable report.
Move for favorable report by Representative Lawrence, second by Representative Drummond. Any discussion or questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill is given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee.
Clerk, call the next bill, please.
House Bill 283 by Representative Pascal.
Representative Pascal.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you for allowing me to share a bill that's very important to me and our state. Our current law, well, first, this bill is one of the 13 bills that's part of the military package of bills, and the goal is to continue to seek ways, policies to ensure that Alabama remains in the top two for the most military-friendly veteran state in the nation. Under current law, compensation for active service members of the armed forces of the United States in a comeback zone is not subject to state income tax. What this bill does, it expands that to include our National Guard and reservists to include when they're deployed outside the United States and also inside the United States. I know we were talking about a tax cut within our budget. We have to be very careful and have to create that balance. But I cannot think of anything more important than when it comes to recognizing our men and women and their sacrifices to maintain the freedoms we have to be here today. I cannot think of more worthy bill to pass. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Senator Jones upstairs is the sponsor of the companion bill, which it passed the Senate already. And I'm open for any questions if you have them.
So fiscal note is $1.6 million. And this is the exact same bill as Senate Bill 209, Senator Jones' bill, right?
That's correct.
Any comments or questions? Representative Levin.
Mr. Chairman, I think they've worked well with this. This is part of the military package of bills that the Lieutenant Governor has worked with to try to continue our pace with our service members. And With that appropriate time, I'd like to give the bill a favorable report.
Move for favorable report, Representative Lovern. Is there a second? Second, Representative Colvin. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Clerk, would you please call SB 209, and let's go ahead and deal with that one as well.
Okay, thank you.
We carried that over earlier, so.
Senate Bill 209 by Senator Jones.
Same bill, right? So,
Yes, as mentioned, this is a companion bill, and upon the favorable report, I'll be honored to carry the bill on the floor.
motion by Representative Colvin, second, Representative Lawrence. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thanks.
Clerk, please call the next bill.
House Bill 298 by Representative Rafferty.
Good morning, members. Good morning, Mr. Chair. What this bill does, it would exempt the Lieutenant General Victor Brute Crew Elect Detachment of the Marine Corps League from payment of sales and use tax. But it would also provide for municipalities and counties to exempt this entity from the local and sales and use tax if they opted to through resolution or ordinance. Happy to answer any questions. You should have a letter here from the detachment, from the treasurer there, explaining how this could help them support Marines in the local area and corpsmen. If there's no other questions, I'd just ask for a favorable report.
And this is a less than $2,000 annually.
Correct, yes, sir.
Any questions or comments? Representative Collins?
I was anxious to hear you describe what this was about a little bit. My dad was a Marine, and so I think, and I know all of the military has had trouble recruiting, and I think Marines always have my heart. So at the appropriate time, I'll move to give a favorable report.
Thank you very
Favorable
much.
report by Representative Collins and second by Representative Drummond. Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. This reminds me, Representative Almond, the project we've had or whatever, do we expect any legislation this session? Are we still, as far as the categories of exemptions or, yeah?
Probably not, Mr. Chairman, simply because Department of Revenue had several questions that we're still trying to work through and answer.
So I think, so the idea is basically try to figure out how to wait for these one-off situations not to have to come before the committee. I did speak to Senator Orr about it as well. So once we come to some recommendation, we'll want to certainly get the discussion with them as well to make sure the Senate would follow the same procedures. All right, thank you. Clerk, please call the next bill.
House Bill 326 by Representative Keel.
Representative Keel, you're recognized.
If I might add, there were good questions by the Department of Revenue. I didn't mean to throw them under the bus. There were good questions that I can't answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HB 326 is not a new or expanded tax credit. It is a tax credit carve out within the existing film tax credit. And so currently the film tax credit is capped at $20 million. This would take within that $20 million, $2 million and give it to the music industry. And we do have proof of concept on this. ShoalsMusicMakers.com, if you wish to go there. Shoals Music Makers is an existing local tax incentive to do what this will do also. And so we'll be working with the Department of Commerce. Just like the film industry, it will run out of Department of Commerce.
Thank you for that explanation. I think that emphasis for the beginning was for my benefit because I first was I was concerned that we were taking a credit that wasn't being utilized and somehow providing a way for it to be utilized. That's not the case. This is basically the credit's being fully utilized, and this portion of the credit's being fully utilized, as I understand. But what it's setting aside, and also there's a provision. Can you explain this 6-month provision?
Oh, can you tell me?
It's section B, line 255. I think what it says is that for 6 months, the $2 million is if there are no applications in that first 6-month period.
The $2 million will revert back to film.
Right.
Yeah. So if it doesn't get used, then it can go towards film, and so we can still reach the $20 million cap.
Right. Any questions or comments? I did speak with the Department of Commerce to get their understanding of this, and you guys were supportive. Representative Collins.
I want to thank you for bringing this bill. We were on a conference, a Zoom call before session, I think, and we worked through some of the details. One of the things I worked on the entertainment, the film incentive back in 2012, and one of the things we've tried to do too is to spread that out so it's having an impact all over the state.
Sure.
And I think this actually brings that North Alabama area more involved in participating. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I also move to give a favorable report at the appropriate time.
Motion of favorable report, Representative Collins. Is there a second? Second, Representative Almond. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I believe that's all the bills we have on our agenda today. Next, we want to welcome Susan Poling with ALET, the Alabama Leaders in Educational Technology. You're familiar with this group. They are, in my mind, the boots on the ground, helping our school systems with their technology needs. And we look forward to your presentation today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. And I'd just like to introduce you to my colleague today, Dr. Michael Powell. He is the Chief Technology Officer for Montgomery County Schools.
Welcome, sir. Thank you.
All right, so this is going to be a very brief report bringing you up to date on some things that have happened since we were here last year. First of all, the use of funds in the current fiscal year is divided among various software and hardware pieces that add to security, but the lion's share of the money is going towards network administrators and contracted services, because all of those other things in that pie chart need to be implemented, managed, and monitored. We can say now that the first year that cybersecurity money for school systems was put in the budget was in a 2020 supplemental budget. So going back to 2019, we've seen a 10% increase in the number of school districts that now have a network administrator, which is good progress, because there are systems that are so rural or so poor, they may never be able to hire a network administrator due to their location and candidates available for the job. They primarily use that contracted service for that. But we are making progress on this, and with the additional money that you put in your approved budget for this year, it will greatly help out the large districts whose costs for the same piece of antivirus software are exponentially higher than for smaller districts, and who are often in metropolitan areas where the competition for IT staff is really fierce these days against business and other governments, Huntsville, Montgomery, Birmingham, Mobile. So that is very appreciated by those districts, and we hope that it will lead to even greater improvements for them. We're still using our application process, and one of the reasons for that application process is not to make this a grant out of it, but so that we can measure the progress and report back to you on the progress. And it also acts as a needs assessment for the cyber camps that we hold, because we ask about best practices that are in use and what resources districts have. So from the data that we collected this past September, we can see that these areas were strengthened over the prior year. And that is very good news. These are all important things. But there was some not so good news too, and I usually try and be very clear. So there were 3 areas where we were not seeing improvement and not seeing these particular things at 100%. These items should be at 100% because there is no barrier cost-wise for them to do these things. There are resistance to some of them. They were just not sure how to go about some of them. So the incident response plans, for instance. Y'all may know that Jefferson County Schools got hit by a ransomware attack last spring break. If they had not had a good incident response plan, they could not have immediately jumped into action and stopped the spread of that as much as they could, and they probably would not have been opening school immediately after spring break. Every district needs to have an incident response plan. The employee phishing and training, you already provide funding for that. Alabama Supercomputer manages that contract, so no barrier there to doing that. And multi-factor authentication, the little bit of secondary confirmation of who is logging in, that is a very low cost or no cost solution that should be used to protect high value accounts. And by that I mean the accounts on the network that have access to databases that contain confidential student information, social security numbers, routing numbers for banks and stuff like that. So when we didn't see progress on these for the last couple years, we reached out to the State Department of Education, worked with Dr. Brandon Payne, Deputy Superintendent, and Sue Ellen Gilliland, who is the Coordinator of Educational Technology, and asked for their support in this area. Because we've done the training in these areas, we're just still not seeing the adoption of them. And they worked explaining this to Dr. Mackey, and he issued a memo in September. And we were very, very pleased that he did this, requiring, and there's detail involved in this, that these 3 things be adopted. So next year when I come back, if you ask me to, we're going to see those numbers up to about 100%. We always have a few new charter schools and different schools come along, so we may never reach 100%. But in addition to that, the State Department and our group got together and funded incident response plan workshops across the state, because this is very involved and you need more than a 1-hour workshop at a cyber camp to do it. So they provided the venues, we provided some of the money for lunch at these. Every system was required to have at least 1 person attend. The workshops were very interactive. They went through tabletop exercises of various cyber incident scenarios. They got training. They had time to work on their plan, and then they go back to their districts, get with their leadership team, and complete their plans. The plans were due April 5th, and so I now think that every school system in Alabama has a good start on an incident response plan. One of the other new things that happened this year is that I attended a national K-12 technology cybersecurity conference. Sue Ellen Gilliland, the coordinator of educational technology, attended along with me, and together we presented what Alabama is doing about cybersecurity in K-12 school systems. What you're doing is leading the way. What you're doing is unique. What you're doing is not a cookie-cutter approach, but an approach where you can measure progress, approach that meets systems where they are and helps them make improvements. And this was a very well-received presentation, and I heard lots of very complimentary things about how dedicated you are, about your funding, but also the manner in which that you are doing the funding, and the State Department of Education for taking a leadership stand in this area. We have 1 more cyber camp of our 2 camps per year coming up here in Montgomery in May, and we always get a full house for that. But what I'm sorry to say is that not all districts send someone to these camps. There's absolutely no financial barrier to them doing that. But some systems have such small staffs, they're just too busy to leave. And it's very important that they come to these, but we cannot make them come. We can only make it possible for them to come and make sure they know they're invited. We don't just use our own folks for this. We have people from the CISA organization, the Department of Homeland Security, 2 universities in Alabama, and Alabama Supercomputer also do quality presentations at these camps. This year we have 1 more thing that we're doing, something new. On the 2nd day of the cyber camp, we are going to have CISA headquarters people. And I hate saying it, but it's Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency is what CISA is. They're in charge of protecting our nation's infrastructure and key elements from cyber attacks, and that includes K-12. They're sending in a team from their headquarters who will take the participants through new tabletop exercises, giving them new scenarios that they see around the nation. That way our systems can bring their incident response plans with them and see how their incident response plan holds up against these scenarios, go back and make some modifications or additions to their plan if they find that that's needed. The second half of the day, we have an expert in public relations for crisis management. And he in particular has very good experience in communications during a cyber incident. It is very important that you do this well for your internal stakeholders and your external stakeholders and know how to work with law enforcement as far as communications go. So that is why we've not only invited technology people, but also we have superintendents coming, we have CSFOs coming, and we have public relations people coming. So we hope that's a new addition. We try and be innovative and meet the needs of our districts. So that's just a little snippet of what's going on with cybersecurity. We very much appreciate your longtime support for this and your interest in it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for all you guys do. I think you have been very responsible with the funds you have been given and what you're doing. There was a breach in the Jefferson County system, as you mentioned, and after that was all resolved and whatnot, you brought me in to give me kind of an update, and that was very interesting. Would you mind explaining to the committee on another topic? We provided this pilot program funding yesterday in the supplemental. Would you mind describing to the committee what you'll be doing in that regard?
Yeah, the pilot program has to do with software that is going to help technology coordinators in the pilot districts understand what applications are being accessed across the internet for their districts. I don't know if anybody can really imagine, unless you're in IT and K-12, how many different software programs are in use. You may have a teacher over here who's decided that she's going to use some of her classroom money to buy this access to this piece of software, federal programs buying software. So the number of software pieces K through 12 is astounding. Sometimes these softwares have not been vetted and approved through a process at the district. And so this is going to give insight into that traffic to see where all of these destinations are that students are going to. There was a case a couple years ago where one of our technology coordinators saw tremendous traffic going back and forth to China. And when he tracked it down of why it was an app, it was a math app, and it was a perfectly fine math app for children to use. But somehow Chinese had tunneled into that and were offloading data from it. So there is a cybersecurity component to this. There is also a component that will help improve the use of effective software programs, so that if software programs are not being used anymore, and sometimes you just don't know that something has, just been replaced by something else, but they're still paying for it. So there's a lot of different aspects of this software that I think will truly benefit those districts, and we'll see how it transforms their insights into it and helps them shape a policy of adoption of software use that is safe and is meeting the educational needs of the students.
So is the safety, the educational needs of the students, and also cost effectiveness to the system. And I just want to mention that during the budget process, I had someone who actually provides this program of that you're going to be monitoring presented to me, and it sounded intriguing, but I just said, I directed them to you, to Susan, because I said, she, number one, will vet things. She will not, she'll beat you up on it, make sure it does what you say. And she came back and said, I really think this is something that has some merit, but I can't say 100%, but it might be worth a pilot. So that's how we arrived at this. So I appreciate your willingness to get involved in that. I think it could be very good information for us, and we'll just see where it goes. But thank you for that.
Okay,
but,
thank you.
You didn't ask for that, but we asked you. Anybody have any questions or comments for Susan? Representative Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bowling, I would say that just very much applaud your work, the work of Alette. I think that has allowed our state to be a leader in a way in regards to technology and technology safeguards in particular. I do wish, just making a little bit of a comment, which you've already alluded to today, I wish that we could get greater participation down in where the rubber meets the road down in the districts with the employees, both with the cybersecurity training, which is available to ensure that is being handled effectively. And then not only that, just the cyber camps that are available, the participation with that. But anyway, I just applaud your efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Thank you for all you do. Any other comments or questions by committee members before we adjourn? Thanks again for your help on the budget. We'll now see with the Senate how they proceed, but we appreciate your diligence and your hard work. Thank you. We're adjourned.